right, so hope you've all survived your lab exam, and now we're back at it, and we're going to be talking about some very important cellular processes. So up until this point, we've been talking to you about cells and their structure, and we started talking a little bit about an important process before, diffusion and osmosis. But we're going to continue on that about these cellular processes. And one of the most important cellular processes is glycolysis, breaking down glucose, and that way we can get that all-important ATP molecule. Love it, because that's really the the energy source that drives basically everything in the cell. And there are different processes that you're going to learn about. You're going to learn about aerobic respiration, and you're going to learn about fermentation. But when we do things here in this lab, measuring aerobic respiration is a little bit trickier. So instead, we start talking to you about fermentation. And there is a great fermenter in basically everybody's kitchen, and that is yeast, right? Yeast is used to ferment things, helps make bread and pizza dough and beer and all that kind of good stuff. And the good thing is that we can measure fermentation right here really easily, right? Because some of the byproducts of fermentation are alcohol. We're not sampling the alcohol, not here, but we can measure carbon dioxide production. So what I have for you today is that we put some yeast in a little baggie, right? Yeast is a microbe, right? We learned about them last time, right? We got them in here, and we need to give them something to eat, right? Just like any other you college students, you need something to eat. So in this particular bag, we're giving it good old glucose, right? Simple glucose, add it in there, and I'm gonna add some water. We've gotta get that process started, right? We're gonna have, this is what is our positive control, right? This is glucose. And in here, we just have the yeast. I didn't give them anything to eat, and we're gonna have just plain water. This one we're doing is stevia. Stevia is a common sort of sugar substitute. You find it everywhere. People put it in teas and stuff, and sometimes they bake with it. I've had my wife bake with it, and we're gonna show you these three as a demonstration. And what I'm gonna be showing you is I'm gonna add the water, and we're gonna measure the height of these bags over time. Because what should happen is the yeast are gonna, they're gonna eat all this, the substrate, they're gonna eat the glucose, maybe the stevia, they're gonna release, and we should see that the bags puff and puff and puff, right? As they're releasing that byproduct. So we're gonna get started. Here we got just some plain old water. It's pretty warm though, because the yeast like to be pretty warm. I'm gonna add 50 milliliters right in here. And I'm gonna start with my water, and I'm gonna add it. I gotta mix it, gotta just make sure it's mixed up, right? Add that. And starting at time 0, I've got, my bag is at, let's see. It's at, let's see here, it chilled out. It's at 2.5 centimeters, okay? Now, I'm gonna add this water over here. I'm gonna add it to my stevia. All right. Okay, there's my stevia. And again, my time 0, I'm checking this out. It's at 2 centimeters. Now I'm gonna add my last one, my glucose. Remember, glucose is a wonderful monosaccharide. We're gonna see how well this runs. Zipping it up just like this. Give it a little mix. All right. And my time 0 is 2 centimeters. We're gonna let this clock run for about 5 minutes, and we're gonna measure these again and see if they puff up. Because again, you got all these excited yeast, we've just given them something to eat and something warm to drink. right? And now they're gonna go ahead and release some carbon dioxide and trace amounts of alcohol in there. All right, so here we are 5 minutes later. I'm gonna measure these all over again. So now, just to make sure I'm looking here, and my water is at 2 centimeters. My stevia, just gonna give it a little mix, hold on. Making sure. My stevia is at 2 centimeters, and my glucose is at 2.5 centimeters. So again, we're gonna let this run for 5 more minutes and see if they're any bigger. All right, so here we are at the 10-minute mark, trying to figure out, if they produced enough carbon dioxide to make a difference. So here we are at our water control, and we're still at about 2 centimeters. The stevia has got at about 2.4, and our glucose is now at 3. So again, these yeasts are working really hard. They're consuming the different substrates, right? And then these are their byproducts. So again, we're going to check in again in 5 more minutes. All right, welcome back. Here we are at the 15-minute mark. I'm going to see what our little yeast buddies have done. So I'm going to go ahead and measure this. Again, here's our water. There's our negative control. And you know what? It stayed pretty consistent. It's, again, at 2 centimeters. The stevia, trying to see what it's at. 2.5. Yeah. And our glucose is still at 3 centimeters. So again, these are tiny little things, right? And each one of them is cranking them out hard. So we're going to keep watching this, and we'll check in 5 more minutes. Well, all right, again, here we are. We're at the 20-minute mark of our 30-minute march, or 35-minute march, right? And again, we're checking in. We've got water right here. We got some stevia. We got our glucose, trying to see how they're doing. I'm just gonna mix this up just a little bit just to make sure everything's good. So here I am, touching base right back with the water. And the only thing I keep laughing about, anybody out there with an astigmatism, yeah, this part's not so easy, but here we go. And again, we're flat at 2 centimeters. Our stevia is looking at this, and we are at 2.4 centimeters. And glucose is up at 2.8 centimeters. So we lost a little bit. Let's just see. Let me double check on that one. Yeah. No, I'm gonna take that one back since I'm a little bit over here. I'm gonna say this one's at 3 when I look at it this side. So go ahead and say that. We're gonna call that one at 3. And we're gonna let them continue with their little bath here, and we'll touch in at 25 minutes. All right, so here we are back at the 25-minute mark. We can already start to see now that they've been cranking for a little while, this is definitely getting going here. But again, we'll check our water as our negative control. Maybe some minor fluctuations, but I think we're still stuck at 2 centimeters. And then our stevia looks like, our stevia is now at about 2.8. All right, that looks it. And here, our glucose is at 3.3. So not too bad for little things that are cranking out that much carbon dioxide. So again, come back at the 30-minute mark. Hello, little yeasties. How you doing? It's smells like bacon bread in here. I love it. So we want to see how hard they've worked over the last 5 minutes. So checking in back with the water, right? Again, not much change, 2 centimeters. Our stevia has come up a little bit. We're at 3 centimeters here. And let's check out our glucose, right? And now our glucose, ooh boy, we're at 3.6 centimeters. And we'll do one more check-in at 35 minutes, and then we'll see what these final measurements are. All right, this is our final measurement of the day. And so we've been letting these things tick away for the last, 35 minutes. So we're gonna check back in and just see how they did. So here's our water, just as a reminder. Again, I haven't expected any change. No, it's still at that 2 centimeters, right? So just got a little air in there. This is our stevia. And our stevia is at, 3.3 centimeters. But our glucose, right? Our happy glucose. And now we're at 4 centimeters, right? So, I mean, that's a lot of gas for, tiny little microbes, right? So I'm pretty impressed. And so this is just the example for just these 3, and then you guys will be provided with data from a broader array, from everything from cornstarch. Can't wait to see them eat cornstarch. Got some sucrose over here, fructose. We have maltose. And so you guys will have the data. We've given the yeast all of these different options and see how the data changes.